Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the Hurricane Wind Kit from the guys at Sim Racing Studio, sporting some powerful B-Gears B-Blaster fans and some new injection molded housings, along with a tuning app with some nice features on hand like wind curbing. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how they do. So, let's get to it. Let's take a closer look at what we get in the Sim Racing Studio Hurricane Wind Kit. We get two of these units, and these are fans, obviously, that are in another housing. So it's an individual fan, and we'll take a closer look at that in a minute. And it's just sitting in this housing that has a cover on it, and the cover has the cone of power. So it redirects the air. Obviously, it's compressing the air as it comes out, and will come out of these vents here. There's another recessed area behind this in the center of the cone. We'll take once we do a look inside, we'll be able to see all that. It compresses the air in that and creates some kind of an air bubble on the other side of it that helps the airflow, apparently. These are 3-inch, what they're calling 3-inch cones here. So you can put a 3-inch tube on that if you want to run like an extended tube system. They also have for sale. So out of the box, yeah, you know, it's injection molded plastic. This is not 3D printed. They used to 3D print their housings. It's nice that they went to the injection molding. It's a little bit more durable, I would say. And not only that, but it's usually more smooth, you know, less dimply. It's something like it's 3D printed, comes out, has that texture in it. So anyway, it gives it a little bit more professional look, I think. So we have a fan in here that's blowing air. It's pretty simple stuff, right? Got another one over there. And we're going to see what kind of speed these things put out. The fans themselves are BJ or B-Gear. Yeah, B-Gears right here. And they are, we'll get a better look at that when we do a look inside. But it's a pretty robust fan. I think it goes up to almost 5,000, 5,200 RPM. So I don't expect these to be really quiet at the highest levels of power. But then again, you can dial it down and get what you want to out of them. That's what's good about these systems. Also on the case, we see we have a series of holes on 3 sides. We have it on each side, right there and there. And we have it on the bottom. Don't have it on the top, but yeah. That's so you can use their mounting system that they include, that we'll take a look at in a minute here, with their system. And yeah, not really much else to see here. We've got a port on the back for data and another port for DC power jack. So this is actually an RJ45, which I prefer over the RJ12s that they had on those systems before. So this is just a straight through network cable that will work for this, and they include those in the kit. What we're going to do is see what else we get in the kit first. You get this controller box. Sim Racing Studio, again, another injection molded unit here, and it has 4 ports on it, although we only need 2. And these are all RJ45s. Apparently, all of the systems from SRS, at least what I can see here and on their website, are going to go to this new RJ45 interface from the RJ12, which I really like that they've done that. We also have a USB mini, not a micro, but a mini interface there for USB. There is no power connector, so we're only going to be getting 5 volts to this out of our USB hub or the PC itself. It's labeled on the back. We have LED tack and wind left, wind right. You want to make sure you get these in the right direction too. So, because if you don't, it'll be crossed over for that feature that they include with their systems, which is that wind curving element. So again, pretty well made here. Might have to pull this open so we can do a look inside and see what's in the cabinet maybe. Probably just a circuit board similar to what we have in the fans themselves, I would imagine, except it's got the controller in here. All right, so what else do you get? We get a power supply. Now this power supply is rated at 12 volts at 4 amps. So apparently these fans are going to pull some power because it's, you know, 4 amps is, yeah, it's a good amount of current. And at 12 volts. So, and this is a switching, by the way, so it'll work for 110 or 240 volt systems. So it's a switching one, so you don't have to worry if you're in Europe or if you're in North America. It will work with either one. And of course, we have the standard 3-pin connector, like a computer case or something like that. And they do include a North American plug for me. So that'll work just fine. Nothing fancy here. It is a nice thick cable though. It's very stiff. So that should bode well for wear and tear. Oh, and I did mean to point out that they actually have a ferrite core on this power supply. And this is molded in under the manufacturing process. It's not just a clip-on. So I always like to see these. We got a little LED that's going to light up when we power it up. Yeah, not much to see there. We get this little guy. Well, not little guy, it's kind of long. And this is a Y adapter. Let's go ahead and pull this apart so I can show you. This obviously is going to plug into our power supply over here, like this. Very simple. And then it has a Y in it, or a splitter. Not that far from where we're connecting to. And then we have this long length of 2 of our DC power supply plugs. And those are going to plug in, obviously, into the back of the fan in here, like that. Now, this, I measured this out to be, this is about 1.5 meters, or just under 5 feet long, which is not going to be long enough for my application, but I have a big rig, as you guys may know, if you've watched any of my videos before. And yeah, things are kind of spread out. So I need some longer things. It's probably one of these on one side would be fine. But because it's a splitter setup, it's just not going to be enough length for the splitter. I already checked it out. But that's not a big deal. It's easy to take care of these situations if you go to a store and just buy these. This is what I'm going to be using. These are cheap 6-foot DC power plug extensions. That's all they are. See? So this is going to give me the reach I need. And these are only like, I think these were like $7 or something shipped. So not much money. But again, it is a pretty good length. I think for most setups, it's going to be fine. But I'm not most setups, unfortunately. We also get these very nice looking and heavy duty looking RJ45 network cables. And these are straight through cables. If you look at the pinouts on them, on the colors, you can see they're the same. So that means they're straight through. There's no crossovers. And this is not a shielded cable. It is a Cat 6. I was looking on the side of it the other day. Yeah, Cat 6. And it's not shielded. It does have something going on there with the twist, though. You can see the texture in this cable. But yeah, if it was shielded, we'd have metal pieces on the top of our actual plugs here. So you get 2 of those, and these are going to be long enough to reach the control box for me. I've already kind of measured this stuff out, see where I was going to be. You also get a USB cable for the mini USB, mini on one side and A on the other. No ferrite cores on here or anything like that, but yeah, decent cable, I guess. Now, this other stuff that I got is not standard. These guys right here. These are the available aluminum profile mounts that you can mount to your fan. And as you saw the holes over here on this, these holes obviously are going to match up with that. So it would just sit on the side, or depending on how you're mounted, obviously. Get this lined up. So this would sit on the side of the profile via these connectors here. And then you could put this here like this. You could put it on the other side, or you could put it straight up and down. In fact, I've got a piece. Let me grab this piece of the profile here. And this will go on with some T-nuts, like so. You want these tabs to be, turned straight up, so you can obviously set. You know, if there's this way, it would be hard to set it on there. So you put one here, and that gives us some swivel. Able to move it this way, can turn it, so it gives us good angle adjustments. If it was this way, you can go up and down and tilt it this way, but you couldn't obviously go this way with it. So these are available, but these are, it's $219 for the basic kit, this Hurricane kit. And if you add these to it, it goes up to $249. So these are a $30 add for these. And it does include an M6 screw in there, little flathead job. You can see this has a countersunk piece in this piece of plastic here. And again, ejection molded, very thick too. So it's a nice feeling piece of plastic. And this is the screw that comes out of it. It's very short, and it is a flathead, so it fits down in there. It doesn't get in the way of the profile when you mount it to the profile. It won't catch anything. So yeah, a $30 add for these pieces. I'm going to be mounting it a little differently, but this is what you can get as an extra. Now also, as you can get as an extra, is this set of, they're calling these sticky mounts, GoPro sticky mounts, 360s. And they're the typical mounts that we'll see on GoPro stuff. And this obviously will fit on the side of our casement like this. Screw it in. And then you'll have your mount screwed into that. This will be sitting in here like so. And then you can tighten it down with this. And then this clip will go into the base. I'm going to pull the base out. And they got some sticky tape too. So here's the base. Here's the 3M adhesive that would go on the base, on the bottom part. And then we would clip it into, we stick this to something obviously. And then we would clip this into it, just like all GoPro equipment. Get it to go here. These new ones are kind of stiff usually. There you go. So it clicks in like that, and then we'd have the fan, and we would be able to move it this way, but we wouldn't be able to move it that way. I'm not sure why they're calling this 360. I suppose you could, yeah, it just really goes this way. Can't twist this way. Well, you could twist it based on how tight this is against it, though, so I guess you could twist it that way. Right. So they offer this kit too, and it is another $30 ad to get this kit. So if you added both of these, well, you wouldn't add both of them. You'd add one or the other. So it'd be a $30 ad either way you go. So $219 plus a sticky mount would put you at, I believe it was $249. So yeah, something to consider when you're considering all your mounting options. I'm going to do something a little differently, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this system. Now, this is a speaker mount system that you can get on like Amazon or some other places, and it's made for mounting speakers, obviously. So we just put this in there. The ball goes in like that. We tighten it down with this screw here. Snug. And then we'll make our final adjustments. But you can see the range of movement we have on something like this. It goes up, goes down, of course, goes this way. And of course, we can spin it this way so it goes this way. So this is a good solution for mounting a lot of things. I mount my speakers. I mount a couple other things with these on my profiles. This is really good. You do have to have, obviously, some T-nuts. And these are M5 bolts that fit in the holes. So M5 bolt or M5 you will need for that. So, but yeah, and you'll see it when I have it mounted, how this works. Now, you can pull this back out. When we mount it, we're going to be putting these inside of our housings like this. And I'll get to that once we get there. And then we'll put it together, and then I'll demonstrate again how this is going in. Now, the holes in here aren't tapped, pre-tapped, so you're going to be tapping it as you screw something into it. In fact, if you wanted to get their profile kit, then you would still be cutting threads into the plastic when you put this in here, right? What else can we talk about for availability on the kits here? They also have a 360 ball, and that is it comes with an adapter mount, and that also adds, I believe, $40 or $30 to it. Let me see what that gets me. Let's see, I'm adding it up while we're talking here on the aluminum profile mount, the 360. So that's $279. So that's $60 more. So you have some mounting options, but I think that, you know, this is going to work out better for me. Obviously I have profile, and if I had like a wooden one, I could still drill holes and put screws in there, right? And these, by the way, are going to run you probably around $15 to $20, depending on where you buy them, for a set of them. So yeah, and once you mount these to profile, you get these things and tighten them down, they're not going anywhere. Rock solid. I'm just not 100% confident because of the weight of these things, how well the sticky solution, the sticky things are going to work. Unless you're mounting them on top of something, then they'd probably be fine. But if you're going to hang them off the side of something, yeah, I would not be 100% confident that that's going to hold forever. All right. So we covered everything that you can get. What we'll do next is get to the look inside. Now for our look inside segment. First, we'll take the controller box we saw before, injection molded piece, taking that apart already. And I left the board attached to the bottom part. No sense in, or need to, take that apart. See what we have in here. We have an IntelliBox Revision 5. You can see the printing there. Even has the wind right, wind left, tack, and aux on here. And aux is LED on the other side. We have a nano board. Turn this around the other way. A common little board we see in these kind of applications. Programmable. You can load your own firmware on there. That's what they've done, obviously, to control the fans and the lights and the tack. So yeah, not a lot to see here. Clean little installation. It is a little off-centered. Interesting. You can see the screws are in flat there, but it's a little off-centered on the mount there. Not that I suppose it makes any difference, because once I put it in here, it's back on. I mean, it fits fine, so not hitting anywhere, so that really doesn't matter. But I would have liked to have seen that a little straighter. All right. Put that aside. Now let's take a look in the fans. Now, you notice on the fan, listen to this. It shakes around a little bit in there, doesn't it? I'm not sure why they wouldn't put some damper in there to keep that from happening. But let's take a look at the casement first. And they have done that in one point, or one part of it. You see right here, there's a little rubber bumper there. I like to see some kind of rubber on the sides to keep this thing from rattling around, and maybe even on these ledges here where it's actually sitting. The fan goes in, it's actually sitting in here like this, and this helps support it. So yeah, it'd be nice to see something like that in there. But yeah, the rattle's the rattle. And when it's running, it might be rattling. But I think there's a way that I'm going to be able to adjust that. And once I get it mounted, I'll talk about that. So anyway, you can hear the... I'd rather it just be nice and stiff in there and not move around. In fact, if I put my finger on it, see, this is the fan case right here. It's just these lips in here that are holding it in. So if I put my finger on it like this and hold it, yeah, see, that's what I would rather hear out of these than this. Yeah, okay. We can take a closer look at this piece. And this is the piece I was talking about. If you watch the closer look, you can see there is a cone in here that is sealed off. So when the air from the fan hits this, air gets injected into this. Of course, it has nowhere to go, so it comes back out and forms like a weather front, if you will. Air pressure area in here. Low air pressure or high air pressure. I'm not sure which one it is, but that obviously is going to, because they design it this way, obviously, it's going to facilitate smoother airflow through the vanes here as it gets compressed and comes out the smaller opening out the other side, and also gets shaped by that cone too at the same time. Interesting design. We'll have to see how well this works as far as when we do our speed test. The board that goes in this case is right here. And this is a PowerWind Revision 4 board. Sim Racing Studios, their own custom stuff. And you can see we have obviously our interfaces. I got our power coming in here. We have our data coming in over here. And we have our little power circuit over here that's feeding the fan. This is the fan plug. That's an interface for a fan. And we have a diode here. And we have a power transistor here. You see a little heat sink sticking up there. And a resistor. Not too complicated. Doesn't need to be to get the job done. And everything's nicely soldered. And we'll take a look at the fan. Now, this is a BG Gears blaster. It's a UL E361687. Yes, it's a substantial computer fan. It's got some heft to it. This thing's high speed at, I think max speed is 5,200 RPMs. It's a 2 ball bearing design. So we got ball bearings in here that it's spinning on. We're supposed to give it longer life, I suppose, with a maximum airflow of 308 cubic feet per minute. So this hoss should be able to put some air out. And of course, we have a 3-pin controller plug there so we can regulate the fan, which we're going to be doing for our curving. And obviously, when we're going faster or slower, it's going to ramp up, ramp back down when we're doing that. And this fits in what we just saw. Little plug on the board here. And the rest of this is going to fit in a nice little ball there where we just kind of wind it all up together. And that's going to fit down here in the housing. They've even got a little place for it in there in the injection molding. See that space? So the wire kind of fits down in there. And we have a little notch in it, that notch, so that the wire coming from the bottom of the fan can come around here and go in there. Nice little design. I like the way they did this. Except for, you know, not putting some rubber stuff in here, keep them rattling. What else can we tell you? I think that's it. That's a pretty short look inside, but yeah, there's not much to it. And there doesn't need to be much to it to make it work, but we still have yet to test out the performance. So we're going to test the speed capabilities of these fan motors. sitting in these housings with the cones on them. And I have a little setup here that obviously not too scientific, but it will give us, I think, a pretty close idea what these fans are capable of. I have a piece of painter's tape down here on my bench. I have that marked so I can come to the very front edge of that painter's tape and line up the sides perfectly where they need to be, and that's where both fans will be positioned. I'm going to just run it. You can see that I also have my wind meter set up over here, so we'll be able to monitor how fast this thing goes. So we'll go ahead and do the first test. Probably going to make a little noise, but let's see what we got. False start. One more time. There we go. So that was 21.6 for our maximum. I think it was 21.5. It kind of lingered there. And also remember that from this fan distance over here to where this fan is located over here on the meter, it is exactly 12 inches. And what I want to do is just simply change this around. I'm going to unplug this fan. We'll bring the other fan in, get it plugged up first. Get it lined up with our tape. And we'll turn this guy on and see what he's doing. That looks good. All right. All right, so that was like 22.5, 6, I think was the maximum we saw. So this one's a little bit faster. This is not something, though, that surprises me because of the differences as far as when you're producing 10,000 of these fans in a factory, there can be some variance as far as which ones spin quicker than the others. And just to validate that test, I'm going to put the other one back up here. Do it one more time, just because it's so much fun. Get it lined up here. Yeah, it's looking good. All right, so we got 21.6 there. It did bump to another tenth up to a 7 very briefly, but we can see the results are pretty consistent here as far as how fast these things are blowing. So one fan's blowing a little bit faster than the other. Would I be able to feel that at the distance they're going to be mounted on the side of my profiles and where I'll be sitting? Chances are pretty slim. I think I would be able to tell the difference. So we do have a good stream coming off of this, at least at 12 inches. I'm probably going to be more like 24 inches, 22 inches, my body away from these fans. So it's going to be less than that, but two of them blowing at that velocity is definitely going to be something I'll be feeling, I'm sure. I'm going to go over what I'll be using as far as a mounting system for my fans. This is it. You guys saw this in a closer look. I mentioned them. Some cheapies made in China, little aluminum bits. These are speakers, are intended for speakers. That's how you'll find them if you do a lookup on them. Amazon, eBay, places like that, Newegg. A lot of places sell these things. I have some M5 bolts in here, and I have M5 T-nuts for 40 series on the back, of course. That's what I'll need to mount this with. The teeth inside of this thing is what where the trick is and why it works so well. You can see they're actually spikes, very sharp little spikes in there, and we have them on both sides. And of course, we just adjust this down with this bolt here, where there's a little nut on the bottom. It gets secured in its own little shaped container there, so it won't spin when you're spinning this guy. And that will be clamping down on these pieces here. Now, this is a hard plastic ball on this, but it's not so hard that it won't accept indentation, so it will allow the teeth to grip it. In other words, if it was too hard, the teeth wouldn't get a good grip on it, so the teeth are able to sink into it a bit. You can see I've already used this one. See the indentations on it, and this one I believe has even got more. I've been using these for a while, so they're still going strong, even though I've got all these marks on them. Never had a problem. This is a 1/4 inch thread, 20 pitch, I believe, the standard camera mount type of thread out there. We also have one like this, an L shape, and this is going to obviously, if you have like a bigger speaker or something, it takes up more room. It lets you set that speaker further away from your mount point so you don't have any binding anywhere where it hits something. I'm not going to be using this one, but those are the two different ones that come with it. I'll be using these guys. We also get these wing nuts. I'm not going to be using these because as I put this in here, and we'll talk about that, I'm cutting threads. I'm tapping this plastic over here. So as I'm tapping that plastic, as you might imagine, this is going to get very tight. And I just don't see any reason, well, actually I have that backwards. I don't see any reason to use these T-nuts, or not T-nuts, but wing nuts. Because, yeah, it's going to be tight enough. Typically what we'd use this for, if I had this on the back of a speaker, once I got this tight and bottomed out into the speaker mount, I would go ahead and take this and tighten it up so it puts pulling away pressure on the threads so it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a little locking device. So yeah, I'm 100% confident that I'm not going to need these wing nuts because these things are very tight going in. Right. So I'm going to mount one on one side, and obviously you don't want to, you want to figure out where you're going to be mounting and which one's going to be right, which one's going to be left. And this one is left. And I'll show you right now. I hope this shows up in the, you can see some threads. See that? See the threads in there? Because I've already mounted these. I've been testing with them. Obviously, that's the way I do things. And you can see the threads already in there. But on these other holes, you can see there are no threads. And you could actually mount into one of these other holes if you wanted to, but it's going to create, if you mount it like on the bottom and mounted it, it would create more torque pulling away from it. I think in the middle is the way it is the best place for this, even though you could do it from the top too. But yeah, I think the middle's the way to go. So simple enough. We take our little ball here and we're going to screw this in here. Now remember the rattle in these things? Because this fan is kind of flopping around just a little bit inside the housing here. You could probably leave it like that and not have any issues. But as you start putting this in, even though I've already got threads in this, it is still tough to turn. But I've got some grippy rubber gloves, so hoping I'll be able to get this in without doing anything. Now also, as I'm pushing this in, it's going to contact the housing around the fan itself. And it should, I'm thinking, quiet things up. And we'll see how that works once we're done here. I'm just going to go ahead, and I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on it, try to get that to happen. But I am going to go ahead and screw this in, at least for the thickness of this injection molded plastic, because you want to engage all the threads that you can in here. But once you get through it, you'll be bumping into the fan. In fact, I'm already there, I believe. I'm not going to screw it in real tight because it doesn't need to be. It's one of those things, it's hard to convey on video, but yeah, you know when it's there. Now that it's tight, this is not going anywhere. I have no fear of this thing backing out. It's just tight. And listen to this. How about that? I've snugged this into the side of the fan housing itself. Again, not too much pressure because I don't want to deform the fan, right? Because if I do that, then it's going to be hitting as it turns something because the housing in the fan could actually bend in. So you want to do that. Just got to be careful and make sure it's still free spinning. In fact, let's see if I go ahead and spin this around here. There we go. No clicking or anything like that, so I know I'm good to go. So now it's just a matter of getting the other one in and then getting this on the wheelbase uprights. Of course, we'll just be putting the ball in like this. And now I'll be able to adjust this way. I can go this way and go this way. And it's going to be a very solid mount. So you can see why I want to use these. I've got a lot of experience with these and I know what they do and how well they do it. So again, you always go with what you know, right? So when we come back, we'll see what they look like mounted up to the rig. So I have both fans now securely mounted to my wheelbase support uprights using our speaker brackets that we discussed before. And these are really neat because it's not easy to see until you have this stuff mounted. But now I can take this and tilt it this way, up and down. I can go in and out with it this way. And I can even cant it this way, twist it that way a little bit. So it gives you the maximum capability as far as dialing in where you want the airflow to be. And currently I have these set up so it's hitting my chest, upper chest, and that lets it roll around my neck and goes up the side of my head at the same time underneath my chin. So that tends to be a good place for me to keep me cool while I'm driving. Go ahead on the back here and look at the connections real quick. Of course, we have our RJ45 cable and we have our DC power cable going in. The splitter cable that came with this. Because I have so much reach going on here to get to everything, there's the other speaker over there. Well, can't really see it, but yeah, I had to get some extension cables for the DC power plug, which I kind of knew I was going to have to do anyway. In fact, I already had a couple of them for other things, but yeah, so I did have to get an extension. It was like 6 foot. They're not that expensive. I think it was $8 for 2 of them or something, and they work fine. So that's really all you need. Now, a cool side effect of this system, or really screwing anything into the side of the casement here, you remember how the fan was kind of shaking around inside the housing itself. Well, I screwed this in far enough where it put enough pressure on the outside housing of the fan that's inside of this housing so it doesn't shake anymore. And no more rattles. So that quieted it right down, so I don't have to put any rubber stuff in there. I was thinking I was going to do that later on, but yeah. So that made it nice and quiet. So when you do screw something in, if it goes far enough, obviously, and you don't want to screw it in so far that it's crushing the side of the fan housing. You just want it, you know, snugged up in there. And I did not need to push it all the way in against the fan housing to get it deep enough to give me what I felt was going to be enough threads inside of that housing to where it won't rip out or anything like that. And you do, again, cut your own threads when you go into these holes because they don't have any threads in them. So it might be tough to get it in. I used just a set of pliers on the ball itself as I was screwing it in, because it's a soft ball. It's made to be clamped on, as you can see, the brackets clamping on it. And yeah, not that big of a deal. So anyway, everything's mounted. Everything's aimed in the right direction. And what we'll do now is get in and take a look at the Sim Racing Studio application that will control this. Now we're looking at Sim Racing Studio 2.0, and this is how I'll be controlling the wind. And I also control my PT actuator motion system with this application. So it's a little bit of an added bonus where I can have one application running and control my wind and my motion. So first thing, you go into setup, and this is where we're going to check out and make sure everything's hooked up correctly. If I look over here, I can see what my hardware status is. And IntelliBox, you can see that's up now, so it can see my IntelliBox. It can also see my motion box, which is connected to COM5, and that's my PT actuator Thanos controller. It doesn't tell me which. Here we go, COM port 12. Okay, so we got COM port 12 for the fans, and we're on 5 for the motion. Now I could test the fans here just to see if they're working. First, you want to make sure you pick the right one, 2 plus or 1. So obviously I have 2. I'm going to go ahead and hit test, and they should come on and blow for a few seconds. Make some noise. Okay, so it works fine. Everything's working as it should. Of course, we want to make sure that we have our left and our right fans connected in the right place. So when we get into the curving and things like that, we'll be able to use it. Now, the thing about this tuning menu is for Sim Racing Studio, you have to be in game for you to be able to see how everything's grayed out here. I have no control on what's going on until I enter a game. So, of course, iRacing, whatever the game is that you're getting into, and of course, as long as SRS supports it, then we should be good to go. What I'm going to do now is start the game up, probably iRacing or something, so I can get this menu up and we can take a look at what we can do there. Now I've started up iRacing, and we can see that under the tuning menu, we have everything lit up where we can use it now. So first we'll look at power range. 0 to 100%. You can modify the power range. If it's blowing too much, you can put it down lower if you want. And you can see when I change this, it's also changing down here underneath it. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, here's a trick that I like to use, and that is when I come into the pits, after I've been out running hard and the fan has been doing its job, or they have been doing their job, keeping me nice and icy. Once you pull into the pit, they stop. And then the heat sink starts. So you start getting hot pretty quick. Yeah, there's no button just to turn it on like with a button. So what I do is I keep the power range around the minimum around 2%. That's all it takes. And when I do that, you can see my hair starting to move here. Or 1%, 2%, just to keep some air moving around. Right now I have some air moving. Let's see, I don't know if you guys can see that through the back of the fan still spinning. I think 1% You can see that they're spinning very, very slowly now. I think I usually have it around 2% though. But that's adjustable, depending on where you want it to be. There's 3%. That's a little bit more of a breeze. So now when I come into the pits and I stop, then I'll still have this breeze going across my body and keep me nice and cool while I'm in the pits. I love being able to do that. Actual power, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off right now so it will get quiet again. There we go. So actual power, this is where you can map a button. We'll go ahead and click that. Power, wind speed down. Keyboard currently is Control Shift down. I can clear that and put a button press on it. So I'm going to clear that, and I'm going to use a button press over here on my steering wheel. See if that comes up. Well, let's see. I have to do it down here. Hang on, steering wheel. Yeah, you got to pick your steering wheel, or I have a button box too. I could use that. And I'll just say, okay, now that I'm going to press the button, clear it. Not seeing my buttons on my wheel. Let me try my button box here. Let's try button box. Okay, clear. I'm going to reach down and press or hit one of my button pieces. There we go, button 0. That's one of my switches on my button box down here. Okay, so that's done. So I'll just confirm that, and then I'll go to the next one, which will be turn up the speed. And right now that's Control plus Shift plus up. I'll go to button box again and press the same switch down. Oops, I'm going to go up. There we go. All right, so there it is. Now I can control the speed by reaching down and hitting my button box. If I want to go faster, I just go up. You see it changed to 99%. I go down, 89, 79, 69, 59. So it's going down 10% on each one of my clicks here. So I can control that on the fly. I can do it with my wheel too. I haven't calibrated my wheel yet in iRacing, so that's probably why it's not seeing anything. All right, so pretty simple to do that. I usually don't mess with this. I'll just leave it at 100% down here and just come up here, like I said before, and do my power range. So I got a little bit of wind flowing all the time. Default max speed. So that means when I hit 87 miles per hour, this will be blowing 100% or 99% of whatever is up here. How come it won't go back to 100? Huh, interesting. Let me see if I can make it do it with the, there it goes. I did it with a button. So anyway, the default max speed is 87, which is going to be kind of slow if you're in any kind of a GT car. I usually keep that around 140, somewhere in there, 144, 150, depending on the car's max speed on straights, where I usually leave that. So 143, that'd be fine. And that's all that does. So wind curving, status is on, curving effect 10. This curving effect is just how much effect you want on it. So if I have like it down to 2, you won't notice it as much because the fan that is slowing down won't slow down as much. So that's the overall effect of the curving, depending on if you're going right or left. If you're making a right-hand turn, then the right-hand fan should slow down and the left one will speed up, or just stay the same speed. So I'm going to leave that on 10 because that's what I usually use it on curving. And you know, the wind curving effect, and I'll talk more about that when I'm driving, it's kind of neat. It does exactly what they say it'll do. But as far as the immersion part of me going around a turn, I just can't remember when I was in a race car if I actually felt the wind differences on the right side or the left side with no windows in the car. I just didn't really notice that. Maybe it was there, but then again, we're in simulation, so we're trying to get as many cues for motion as we possibly can. So certainly doesn't hurt, but you can turn it off so that both fans are blowing the same speed, no matter if you're going around a turn or down the straight. Totally up to you. I put it on because it really doesn't matter to me either way. Here's the speed factors. If we move this, it'll change my curve down here. And that just means that it's going to come on stronger all of a sudden. If I go all the way down here, see how straight that line is? Very linear here. So it'll be a very smooth acceleration of wind. If I have it on 3, you can see the vehicle speeds here before the wind really starts going up. It's wind speed. I've extended where that speed is. Here it's 0. As soon as I pull out, it's going to start going. And that is a factor of 1. So you go to 2 and you can see how that's just, it means more speed before these things spin up, and there's going to be a curve to it. Go all the way to 10. You can see there's hardly any wind speed going on, and it just ramps up like crazy at the end. So again, this is something you can play with. I forget where I had it, 2 or 3, you know. I think 2 or 3 is probably where I'd normally use this. And that's about it as far as what we're going to do for the configuration here. And it's pretty simple stuff, which is good, very easy to use. And what we'll do now is just get in and do some driving, and I'll make some comments about what I'm feeling. So I thought the best way to try to show you what's going on with the Airstream is to just watch my hair. Simple enough. And understand that the beams that are hitting me in the upper chest area. So that flows up around my neck and my ears and even under my chin and in that area, which really keeps me cool. I've tried a lot of different configurations of fans over the years mounted to the cockpit like this, and that tends to be the best for me. Of course, that's subjective. It depends on who you are, but I really like having the airflow directed at me like this. These systems, I think, are better than just setting a fan in front of your rig and turning that on. I used to have a fan in front of my rig and had a remote control for it, so I could speed it up and slow it down. Of course, I couldn't do it dynamically like this system does, but I still could. If I needed more air, I would just, you know, hit the remote and I'd get more air. This is a lot more dynamic than that. Now, let's talk a little bit about this curving effect that they have. And of course, that's slowing down the inside fan and leaving the outside fan running faster than the inside fan. So this is something that if I'm paying attention to it, I can feel it, but it's not as pronounced as you may imagine. At least it wasn't for me. It's just one of those things that it's nice to have that feature. It's better than not having the options to do things like that. But at the end of the day, when I'm running hard lap times or I'm in a race, I don't even feel it. What I do feel is the acceleration and deceleration of the airflow itself, which is actually pretty convincing for a sense of speed. Now, I know I'm in a 10 top here, and obviously you don't have air rushing over your body when you're in a 10 top, but if you're in an open wheeler, you do. And of course, it'd be more realistic if you were in that situation as far as you're getting all that air hitting you. But still, it's a very functional item to have on your rig because I can't live without them now. I try to run without fans on my rig, and I just get so hot. I start sweating so much that, you know, I have to get the big fan out if there's no way for me to mount the fan system. I do a lot of testing of rigs, and sometimes I have to do that, just get my big fan out with the remote and use that. But this is more compact. It doesn't get in the way. Well, at least not too much. It is hanging out the sides there, so there might be some interference with something if you have other gear around your rig or something else attached to your rig. But for the most part of what I've been running and all the rigs I've gone through, this will work quite well. So, speeding up, slowing down the wind as you accelerate, again, that's the thing you always notice no matter what you're doing as far as racing or trying to run hard. So that's always there, and it's a good thing, I think. And I like the way that works. Plus, I like the software, the way they've got it configured to where we can actually set that slider at 2 or 3% so that even though we go into the pit, the fans don't stop. Because if you go in the pit after being out on the course for 40 minutes or whatever before you have to take a pit stop, and you go in there and those fans stop, you feel it right away. The heat soak just hits you like you wouldn't believe. And you just can't wait to get out of that pit and get back out on the track again so we get that air flowing, right? So in that effect is very real. I mean, if you come in, regular GT cars or race cars typically have some kind of venting system in the car itself. And when you stop the car, obviously that's not venting anymore. So they experience the same things when they come into the pits. So that's very realistic, I think. And that gives you a sense of being in the race and wanting to get back out, not just to get new tires and stuff, but also to get cooled down. So you'll experience some of the same emotions or feelings, I think, because of that a real race car driver does during a race. So good to have that little slider in there that we can adjust for. So yeah, overall, you know, this is a loud system. When you have it at 100% like I'm running it, you can run it less, obviously, you know, 80, 70, whatever fits your needs. So it's still going to be loud, though. It's not a quiet system. I mean, there are fans after all. When you're running dual fans and they're small fans, so the RPMs, they're going to make noise. So not something that you could probably run in a room that's next to another room with significant other or somebody trying to study or something like that. So anyway, I like the system. It's more compact than the Motion house system I've been running, but it doesn't have as much power, so there's always trade-offs and compromises with everything we do here in sim racing. So it depends on the person on what you can tolerate or what you want and the space that you have. So yeah, I guess that's about it. We've seen enough of my hair flowing around in the wind here, and we'll just get to the next segment. Final thoughts on the Hurricane Wing Kit from the guys at Sim Racing Studio. First thing I noticed on this kit is that now SRS is using injection molded plastics in the housing bits, instead of the previous 3D printed housings used in the fan kit I had reviewed earlier. The overall presentation here is acceptable, but not as good as some other options out there. I did find some things I think could be done better. The PCB in the controller box, which is also an injection molded unit, was not mounted straight, and both the fans inside the housings were loose and rattled when moving the fan units. This did not affect performance at all, but it does give one the impression that it could be done better without much more effort from the person or persons assembling these units. The circuit boards in the fan housings and in the controller box were done well, with no noticeable defects in the boards or solder joints. SRS offers several mounting solutions for their fans at additional cost, which you may want to consider when you order the fan kit. I chose to go with a speaker mounting bracket that I use for most things I mount to my profile cockpits. It gives you very good freedom of movement for aiming the fans and a very solid mount once everything is cinched down properly. As an added bonus, I was able to screw in the ball shaft units far enough to push the fans housings into the SRS case to eliminate the rattling noise. The performance of these fans is very good. They are capable of putting out air streams of 22.6 and 21.7 miles per hour, measured at a distance of 12 inches, which translates to a very strong airflow once you have them mounted to your rig. I ran my fans at 100% power all the time. This did produce some fan noise that many may not like or be able to use depending on where their cockpits are located. You could turn down the power for lower noise volumes if you need to. The SRS Tuning App is very easy to use and has some good features, like the wind curving function when turning. I think most would be able to find settings that they like. Overall, I like the Hurricane Wing Kit. It has noticeably more power than the SRS kits I have tested before. There are a few things that need to be tweaked in the presentation department, but the performance of these fans is as good as one would need, I think. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.